This is Part 3 Episode 102. Those who had bought the map of Sunrise City didn't know that the Sun Moon Empire had set a trap. It was necessary to proceed with caution. Based on his own senses and observation of the flow of people around him, Hu Yuhao believed that he had entered a central region of Sunrise City. He stopped conserving his spiritual power as he reached this region. He activated his spiritual detection and focused his spiritual power to scan in a certain direction. Wherever his spiritual power passed, everything that he surveyed was presented in his mind as a three-dimensional construct. As there were many buildings in the city to obstruct his detection, he couldn't detect as far as he could in an uncluttered area. However, the findings that he obtained were sufficient for him. He started thinking, his spiritual sea undulating tremendously. He slowly made a full turn and quickly scanned in one direction. Sunrise City only stretched slightly more than 20 kilometers across. With Hu Yuhao's spiritual power and the Eye of Destiny, he could almost scan the entire city if he stood in the center of it. It was just that he couldn't actually do this, as it would be too dangerous. His Eye of Destiny was too attention-catching. Even as he observed his surroundings, he conserved some of his spiritual power. Although his ability was unidirectional, he restricted the distance of his detection to a radius of 2 kilometers. In that way, he could still capture everything that was within the core region of Sunrise City. Even a titled Doluor couldn't do something like this. There were no surveillance soul tools that could carry out such an all-around inspection, either. After Hu Yuhao completed his turn, there was a surprised look in his eyes. However, he soon returned to normal, and walked in the direction of the marks left behind by his teammates. The Tang sect had decided to put up at a medium-sized hotel. Before they set off, they had already put on their disguises. Of course, the hotel that they were staying in was naturally not at the address that Nan Qiuqiu had left for that small team leader. Shu Sansha was sitting in the main hall of the hotel, drinking cheap beer, as he waited for Hu Yuhao. After seeing him enter the hotel, he immediately waved Yuhao over. Hu Yuhao walked over to Shu Sanshi's side and sat down. He also ordered a pint of beer. "Why took you so long? Are you okay?" Hu Yuhao smiled and replied, "I'm fine. Has everyone settled down?" Shu Sansha nodded. "Things are fine. Have they revealed anything?" Hu Yuhao replied, "A few things. I haven't found where they are keeping the hostages. However, there are few high-class soul tools installed in the center of the city. The majority of them are stationary soul tools." Hu Yuhao had discovered many things as he observed the city. He had discovered more than 30 residential houses were equipped with advanced soul tools. They were at least Class 6 soul tools, and there were even a few that were Class 7 and Class 8. There were some that he felt were very dangerous, especially those that he had never seen before. It was even possible that they were Class 9 soul tools. How could Hu Yuhao not be shocked given such a situation? Sunrise City was under complete surveillance right now. Undoubtedly, there were many surveillance soul tools above the city. Once something was found to be amiss, signals could be transmitted to the ground immediately. The advanced soul tools that were hidden in the city could then immediately seek out their targets. If there wasn't any emphasis on preventing civilian casualties, those who were discovered were almost certainly doomed. In addition, there were still the 2 soul engineer legions outside the city. Shu Sansha furrowed his brow and asked, "What about underground? What did you find out?" Hu Yuhao replied, "There's nothing underground. My spiritual detection is greatly affected once I try to use it underground. It can only extend 50 meters underground. Even if I use my Eye of Destiny, it can only increase the range to 100 meters. I need to be directly above in order to get a clearer picture. I haven't surveyed the entire city yet, but I think that the hostages are likely to be locked underground. As long as it's deep enough, and the number of entrances and exits are restricted, it'll be very difficult to breach. They'll be much more secure than if they were above ground. Considering how the Sun Moon Empire likes to construct all types of structures underground, that is the likeliest possibility. However, they took very strict defensive measures this time. After I entered the city, I discovered that there were many pipes connected underground at the edges of the city walls. There are people watching these pipes, which are used to listen for any underground movement. As for any other measures, I haven't discovered them yet. Shusansha nodded and said, it's already not easy to discover all this. Don't be too harsh on yourself, take your time. After all, we've just arrived. Go back and rest. We still need to continue tomorrow. Okay. Hui Yuhao followed Shusansha back to their rooms. There were 4 guys and 3 ladies among the 7 of them. The 3 ladies shared one room, while the 4 guys were split between 2 rooms. Hui Yuhao stayed with Ji Juechen, since Hikaitu and Shusansha were unwilling to room with him. Brother Ji. After he entered, Hui Yuhao immediately saw Ji Juechen sitting on a bed. He sounded very annoyed at this point. The moment he entered, a sharp sword intent quickly greeted him. The room was dimly lit, but 2 bolts of electricity immediately flashed as Ji Juechen opened his eyes. However, his sword intent was like ice in the face of boiling water, it was immediately dispelled. Furthermore, it didn't even cause Hui Yuhao any problems. Ji Juechen was stunned. I didn't realize you were already so strong. What's your cultivation like now? Hui Yuhao smiled slightly and replied, you seem to only say those words when you are concerned about your opponent's abilities. When can we start fighting? Hui Yuhao twisted his lips and said, it won't be soon. The enemies we are facing are unprecedentedly strong. We were sent over this time, because the strong soul masters from the academy are certainly being watched. The Tang sect is less of a target. In addition, the Sun Moon Empire won't expect people of our cultivations to save the hostages. We'll likely only make our move after I find out what the situation in Sunrise City is like. However, it's more important to outsmart our enemies. Okay. Ji Juechen acknowledged his words before shutting his eyes and meditating again. Hui Yuhao was a little annoyed as he shook his head. He felt that his words were falling on deaf ears. He didn't eat in the hotel, either. After eating some dry rations, he sat cross-legged on a bed opposite Ji Juechen. He didn't enter a deep meditative state. Right now, he was racking his brain. After his observation today, it seemed his hypothesis about the arrangement of soul tools and soul engineer legions was pretty accurate. The city was covered both inside and outside, and there were both ground-based and aerial soul tools. The entire city was covered. However, Hui Yuhao still felt that this wasn't the full strength in Sunrise City. The city seemed to be very strong, and they even had Class 9 soul tools to hold the fort. However, could they really hold off the other 3 empires on the continent with 2 soul engineer legions? If the 3 empires risked everything, they could mobilize more than 50 title Doluo. With such strength, it was unlikely that the Sun Moon Empire's soul engineer legions could resist them. No one from the Holy Ghost Church is here. Impossible, they must be involved. Hui Yuhao understood evil soul masters by now. The cultivation methods of evil soul masters were different. Usually, they involved the sacrifice of living spirits, which was also the reason why they were known as evil soul masters. As for these hostages who were held captive, they were undoubtedly very suited for cultivation. Their bodies and spirits were no doubt very valuable to evil soul masters. As a result, the Holy Ghost Church regarded them highly. Once the war escalated into a full-scale one, these hostages would lose their significance, and the Sun Moon Empire wouldn't keep them alive anymore. They would try to make them submit, and if they refused, they would be killed. The Holy Ghost Church would love to take the lives of these hostages. The 7 from the Tang sect, who had come this time, were not afraid of evil soul masters. All of them possessed their own special abilities. However, this was under the premise that the evil soul masters they faced were around the same rank. If they met a title Doluo, they would be annihilated. Hui Yuhao had to be extremely cautious because of this. After pondering over his reasoning again, Hui Yuhao entered a deep meditative state to recover the energy he had drained during the day. His spiritual sea glittered, and slight spiritual undulations pulled his mind toward it. Oh? Brother Sky Dream. Hui Yuhao was a little surprised as he called out. He wasn't the same right now as he was before. His spiritual sea was completely under his control. As a result, he could sense the origin of the spiritual power drawing him as his mind was drawn into his spiritual sea. The Sky Dream Iceworm's body drifted quietly in Hui Yuhao's golden spiritual sea. He appeared very leisurely. After Hui Yuhao had entered the Yin-Yang love-querying valley, the Sky Dream Iceworm and the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion both went into deep sleep. Only the little Snow Lady wasn't affected. The two of them had only recovered after he left the love-querying valley. At this point, Sky Dream Iceworm woke up, which left Hui Yuhao surprised. Yuhao, your improvement has already surpassed our expectations. The Sky Dream Iceworm was smiling widely. Ever since he had fused with Hui Yuhao, the iceworm had started to become more and more like a human. Hui Yuhao smiled back and said, I only managed to improve so much due to your strength. The Sky Dream Iceworm chortled and said, at least you haven't forgotten your roots. That force then was simply too scary. Oh? Are you talking about the Yin-Yang love-querying valley? After hearing Sky Dream mention that place, Hui Yuhao's gaze turned cold. If not for the valley, Wang Dong'er wouldn't have been put into a coma. Even though his soul power was increased by 5 ranks before he left, he didn't have a good impression of that place. The Sky Dream Iceworm sighed and said, don't be sad. We could feel what happened to you. However, we were suppressed by that force and couldn't wake up. Even if we were awake, we wouldn't have been able to help you with anything. Don't even think about resisting that force. If we are not wrong, the force hidden within the valley might be related to the gods. Hui Yuhao was moved. Brother Sky Dream, are you saying that there are gods there? Is it true that that valley was where the love god perished? The Sky Dream Iceworm said, I don't know if it's really the love god. However, I'm afraid that only the strength of a god can suppress the spiritual origins of both the Ice Empress and myself. We couldn't even think of resisting it. Don't waste your effort trying to resist it, it's impossible. Furthermore, we could also sense that it held no ill intentions toward any of you. No ill intentions. Dong'er was almost tortured to death. Hui Yuhao said coldly. He clenched his hands into fists, and his gaze turned cold. He wasn't the old Hui Yuhao anymore. In the past, he would have cursed or lost his cool entirely. But as he grew up and experienced more things, he became steadier and more composed. The Sky Dream Iceworm shook his head and continued, all right, we'll not talk about that place anymore. In any case, don't return there. Talk about yourself. When we woke up this time, we discovered significant changes to your body. You were actually able to fuse the strength of both the Ice Empress and the Snow Empress. Hui Yuhao said, I'm only at the initial stages of fusion. I think the martial soul the Ice Empress passed to me isn't complete, even though it's ultimate ice. More accurately speaking, there's a chance of making it stronger. Furthermore, I haven't been able to digest the origin of the strength the Ice Empress left behind, mainly because my cultivation is lacking, and my elemental type is still a little different from the Ice Empress. That's why I tried to tap into the Snow Empress strength, after fusing it with the Ice Empress to increase the quality of my martial soul. After hearing Hui Yuhao's words, the Sky Dream Iceworm was silent for a moment before he sighed and said, Yuhao, do you know what you're talking about? Increasing the quality of your martial soul. It's not something that has ever happened among humans or soul beasts. Martial souls are innate. If you are able to increase the quality of your martial soul, you'll be the first person to do so. Hui Yuhao wasn't too concerned with this. It's probably because I'm lucky. The Snow and Ice Empresses are almost of the same element. More importantly, their strengths aren't conflicting. These are the reasons why I'm able to proceed. The Sky Dream Iceworm said, it seems like you are very familiar with your body's condition. Since you can achieve this, you can start absorbing the origin power the Ice Empress left in your body. Your cultivation speed will increase that way. At the same time, you can slowly absorb the most essential part of the spiritual power I left in your body. The biggest problem that you have right now is your body. Your body isn't strong enough. It needs to be strengthened further. Otherwise, you'll experience problems not long after you absorb this power. Hui Yuhao nodded and asked, I understand what you mean. Do you want me to continue fusing soul bones? The Sky Dream Iceworm replied, yes. In addition, the next soul bone you fuse will need to be of higher quality. The soul bones that you have now are the Ice Emperor's skeleton, the Ice Jade Scorpion left arm bone, and that left leg bone that allows for instant teleportation. Honestly speaking, only the Ice Emperor's skeleton is able to slightly increase your physical strength. The other two soul bones are less effective at increasing your strength due to the fact that they have special abilities. As a result, the skull, right arm and right leg bones that you are going to fuse with next have to be focused on increasing your physical strength. In this way, you can better fuse with the strength of the Ice Empress. As for the Snow Empress, the origin power that she left behind will become a self-sustaining entity on its own, and won't be absorbed by you, as she has become your spirit. However, it'll continue to contribute to your physical growth. I believe you can feel this, too. Hui Yuhao replied, all right. I'll try to find suitable soul bones as quickly as possible. However, soul bones are too important to soul masters. In the eyes of any soul master, soul bones are absolute treasures. It isn't going to be easy to obtain them. Moreover, I need those of sufficiently good quality. I can only search for them slowly. Furthermore, my body isn't a glaring problem yet. After fusing with the immense life power of the life gold, my current physical state can help me last until I've obtained 8 rings. The soul power from my ultimate ice won't drain my body, either. After I've obtained 8 rings, I'll need to further strengthen my body. On the other hand, I'm starting to develop some problems in terms of my spiritual power. After this closed-door cultivation, I can sense that my spiritual power seems to have increased. In addition, this increase is in terms of quality. However, I feel that my spiritual sea is unable to handle this increase anymore. After exiting my closed-door cultivation, I'm afraid of cultivating my spiritual power further. Is there any way I can solve this problem? The Sky Dream Iceworm shook his head and answered, I don't have any special method to help you in that area. Your spiritual power didn't just come from me, a portion of it came from Elder Yi. Elder Yi had already taken half a step into the realm of gods. His spiritual origin, or rather the fragments of his divine sense, had a trace of a divine existence within them. After you fuse with them completely, your spiritual power will be able to increase even faster, until you reach the concrete immaterial realm. However, your brain will start to experience problems if your spiritual power becomes too strong. It's still the same advice: get soul bones, especially a skull. It must be of good quality too. The best choice would be the skull of 100,000-year soul beast. Your problems will be solved if it's compatible. If your spiritual power can rise to another level, it will reach the level I was at when you first met me. When that happens, you'll be able to protect yourself even if your abilities won't increase significantly. It won't be easy for a soul beast to kill you. Hui Yuhao laughed bitterly. Brother, you called me in to say all this. I know everything you're trying to say. Can you give me more clues? The Sky Dream Iceworm said, why are you so rushed? I haven't chatted with you in a long time. Let's chat more. Of course I'm trying to advise you, just like I helped you capture Bing Bing. Don't call me Bing Bing, the Ice Empress' cold voice sounded. A streak of bluish-green light flashed past, and the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion appeared above the Sky Dream Iceworm. She smacked a pincer on his head, and he immediately disappeared back into Hui Yuhao's spiritual sea. Hui Yuhao was surprised. Ice Empress, you're awake too? Yes. For some reason, Hui Yuhao felt that the Ice Empress sounded very weird. There seemed to be something else about her. She sounded shy. The Sky Dream Iceworm resurfaced from another part of Hui Yuhao's spiritual sea, and he was fawning again. All right, I won't call you Bing Bing. Why don't you sleep longer? I can tell Yuhao everything. The Ice Empress coldly replied, you are full of nonsense. You spoke for half a day without getting to the main topic. Yuhao, your soul power is already at a bottleneck. You need to obtain new soul rings to improve further. In terms of your spiritual power, we feel that you can consider finding a species of soul beast called an evil eye tyrant. You can try to fuse with an evil eye tyrant. Yes, that, the Skydream Iceworm immediately added. Shut up. The Ice Empress snapped at Skydream, and he quickly shut his mouth. He looked indignant, but didn't dare to retort. What's going on with the two of you? I feel like something's wrong. Hui Yuhao was curious as he looked at the Ice Empress, before looking at the Skydream Iceworm again. He didn't even seem to be interested when the Ice Empress mentioned an evil eye tyrant, which was a type of soul beast he had never heard of before. The Ice Empress snorted in fury, and glared at Skydream with her crystal yellow eyes, which were filled with a threatening light. Nothing. Yuhao, why are you guessing blindly? Bing Bing and I are purely friends. Our friendship is pure. Am I right, Bing Bing? Scram, the Ice Empress sounded a little weak right now, and her shyness was revealed once again. All right, I'll scram. Don't get angry. I'll scram. As he spoke, he flashed and disappeared into Hui Yuhao's spiritual sea. Hui Yuhao immediately felt the ring around his finger formed by the Skydream Iceworm's actual body was moving gently. He was unmoved as he asked, Ice Empress, what's an evil eye tyrant? The Ice Empress seemed to return to her old self after the Skydream Iceworm left, and she said, evil eye tyrants are very powerful soul beasts. Their abilities differ greatly depending on their cultivation. They originally didn't exist in the Doluo continent, they are natives of the Sun-Moon continent. A few thousand years ago, the strongest evil eye tyrant, known as the Evil Eye Tyrant King, once entered the Great Star Do Forest. At that point in time, Skydream was also in the Great Star Do Forest. After glancing at the place where the Skydream Iceworm had disappeared, the Ice Empress continued, he personally witnessed a huge fight between the Evil Eye Tyrant King and the beast god Di Qian, who is one of the 10 great savage beasts. The Evil Eye Tyrant King was indeed very strong. Even against the beast god, he still had a chance of victory. The beast god's cultivation was around 820-some thousand years, and he had overcome an additional bottleneck compared to the Evil Eye Tyrant King. The two beasts fought for 3 days and 3 nights, before the beast god managed to defeat the Evil Eye Tyrant King due to his superior cultivation. At that point, the Evil Eye Tyrant King tried to kill Skydream before he left. However, the voice of a mysterious existence suddenly sounded and scared him off. Hui Yuhao was stunned as he asked, mysterious existence? What mysterious existence is there in the Great Star Do Forest? The Ice Empress replied, I'm not too sure either. Skydream only knows roughly. The beast god Di Qian is equivalent to the most outstanding ultimate Doluo, but there seems to be a stronger existence in the Great Star Do Forest that is asleep. It might be like Elder Yi, halfway into the realm of gods. It has been sleeping all this while, and probably only the beast god knows how strong it is. Yes. I once heard Di Qian call him Master. Skydream's voice sounded once again, but he didn't appear. Hui Yuhao was stunned as he asked, are the two of you asking me to obtain the skull of the Evil Eye Tyrant King? Fool, of course not, the Ice Empress answered. Evil Eye Tyrant is a species. There isn't just the Evil Eye Tyrant King. Furthermore, you might not even be able to obtain the skull of the Evil Eye Tyrant King. His 8th bottleneck is about to arrive. Initially, he wanted to snatch Skydream because of this 8th bottleneck. If he can't cross this bottleneck and really dies, his soul rings won't remain, although his soul bones will. Furthermore, Evil Eye Tyrants are very special, because they can only produce skulls, and no other soul bones. Hui Yuhao was greatly affected after he heard that they could only produce skulls. Generally speaking, whether or not a soul beast would produce soul bones was up to chance. The higher the cultivation of a soul beast, the more likely it was for a soul bone to appear from it. Only 100,000-year soul beasts would definitely produce soul bones. Under such a situation, Hui Yuhao was facing a difficult task if he wanted to hunt and kill a soul beast to obtain a skull bone. Skulls were the rarest among the 6 types of soul bones. This was why it was down to luck if he wanted to obtain a skull. In most large-scale auctions in the various empires, a skull would command an astronomical price, and someone would buy it immediately. It was harder than the hardest currency. However, the possibility of obtaining a skull would greatly increase if there was a species of soul beast that could definitely produce skulls. In addition, it was almost 100% possibility if Hu Yuhao managed to hunt a 100,000-year soul beast of this species. Hu Yuhao was intelligent. He understood what the Ice Empress and Sky Dream meant and said, in this case, the two of you are suggesting that I find an Evil Eye Tyrant and kill it to obtain its soul bone, since the Evil Eye Tyrant King has either likely died after failing to cross his bottleneck, or is trying to cross his bottleneck and won't disturb me. If I'm lucky, I might even come across the soul bone that he left behind along with his carcass. Am I right? You aren't too stupid, the Ice Empress replied coolly. Hu Yuhao laughed bitterly. However, the problem is that an Evil Eye Tyrant won't be weak even if the Evil Eye Tyrant King isn't around. I don't understand what they're like, since I didn't learn about them in the academy. I can tell you their characteristics. Evil Eye Tyrants live in groups, and they only live in the hottest and most humid environments. Since they are from the Sun Moon Empire, they must have a habitat that belongs to them. I don't think it'll be difficult to find out where their habitat is. As for their abilities, they are able to cause all types of spiritual interference and confusion to living creatures apart from their main offensive ability, the Evil Eye Ray. Unless it's the Evil Eye Tyrant King itself, an Evil Eye Tyrant won't be able to confuse you. You'll need to work for a soul bone, though. In addition, ask a few strong individuals from your academy to follow you once this matter is over. Aren't there quite a few strong individuals in your academy? We are only trying to help you find the greatest possibility for you to obtain a skull bone, but it's not absolute. I understand. Thanks. Hu Yuhao firmly remembered the Ice Empress words before he detached himself from his spiritual world. He exited his deep meditative state naturally and subconsciously looked down at his own finger. The ring that the Sky Dream Iceworm had changed into flipped over, and there were small and subtle words on it. If not for Hu Yuhao's powerful eyes, he wouldn't have been able to see them clearly. The words were, Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley. I went through the same tests with her. I encountered many difficulties and passed countless tests. Hu Yuhao twisted his lips. Tell me about the result. The Ice Empress wasn't like Sky Dream. If she wanted to sense what was happening in the outside world, she had to go through Hu Yuhao's spiritual power. Right now, Hu Yuhao controlled his spiritual sea completely. That's why Hu Yuhao wasn't afraid of the Ice Empress listening in on his movements in the outside world. However, the Sky Dream Iceworm was different. His spiritual origin was with the Ice Empress, and thus he could only interact with Hu Yuhao through some special methods if he didn't want her to hear. The result was that I managed to pass and obtained my reward. We even. Hu Yuhao laughed when he saw this line of words appear. After that, he asked a technical question. How does a worm and a scorpion do it? Idiot. We turned into humans before we did it. You don't even understand this, HMPH. After leaving behind this last line of words, Skydream Iceworm changed back into the ring, and his spiritual aura returned to Hu Yuhao's spiritual sea. Hu Yuhao was finally enlightened now. He revealed a weird smile on his face. They are finally together. No wonder the Ice Empress seems a little different, even though she's still as cold as Brother Skydream. At this point, a faint and cold voice sounded. What are you doing? Ah? Hu Yuhao lifted his head, and saw Ji Juechen looking at him with a weird look on his face. I'm not doing anything. Why are you smiling at me with such a weird smile in the middle of the night? Don't you think? Hu Yuhao coughed. It's not intentional. You can continue with your cultivation. Also, don't smile so amorously. Although I'm very focused on my sword, I'm not completely clueless about other things. Furthermore, I won't like a guy. Shut up. Since when did you become so talkative? We can fight if you aren't happy. Fight my foot. Are you tired of living? Cultivate. Ji Juechen actually revealed a smile at this moment. He twisted his lips as he looked at the exasperated Hu Yuhao. After that, he shut his eyes. As he watched Ji Juechen re-enter his cultivation state, Hu Yuhao's expression slowly turned normal again. He revealed a sense of loss, and seemed to have recalled when he first entered Shrek Academy with Wang Dong. Weren't they on two similar beds then? I still thought that she was a clean freak back then. Who knew that she was actually a girl? If I could return to the past, it'd be great, even if I have to go through the pain of cultivating again. Donga. Yearning was like a carving knife that carved Wang Dong's unforgettable looks deep into his spirit. The night went on silently. In the morning, everyone from the Tang sect started to get busy. Nan Qiuqiu and Yigai posed as sisters, while Ji Juechen and Jing Xian posed as a couple. Hu Yuhao, He Kai-tu, and Shu Sansha acted on their own. The seven of them left the hotel and went around Sunrise City, acquiring information and gathering intelligence. Hu Yuhao had the most important mission. He used his spiritual detection to survey Sunrise City once. Just like he had expected, he didn't find any hostages in the city. What did this mean? It meant that he should start looking for them underground. The layout of the city was clear in Hu Yuhao's mind through his spiritual detection. It wasn't just the city center that had top-class soul tools. There were also top-class soul tools at the four corners of the city, but he had found no evil soul masters so far. Right now, there were at least 1 or 2 Class 9 soul engineers in the city. As he carried out a deeper level of detection, he could confirm that at least one of the soul tools in the city center had to be Class 9. A Class 9 soul tool had to be operated by a Class 9 soul engineer, or a titled Doluo. Since a Class 9 soul tool had been set up, there had to be someone who could operate it. This video will end here.